Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. Today I'm excited to share with you my December 2022 Artisan Design Team Project. I was asked to use the Perch in a Tree bundle, which includes the Perch in a Tree stamp set and the Aspen tree dies. And we're going to be using those dies on these cards as well. These products are in the July through December mini catalog and online, and will be available until January 4th. To purchase any of the products that you see me use today, please visit my online store, and the link is below in the description. Today I'm going to share with you how I used my Classic Stampin Ink Pads to watercolor the birds and the background on these cards. These cards have a simple layout, delicate details, and soft colors that give them a beautiful winter feeling, perfect for this time of year. If you are new to my channel and want to see more of my videos, click on the subscribe button in the bottom right corner. I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and help you with any of your paper crafting needs. You can contact me at any time using my email address, and I list that at the bottom of the description on every video. We're going to be using the Watercolor Fluid 100 paper that you can purchase through Stampin' Up! There are 10 sheets that come in this pack, and they are 5 inches by 7 inches. And what I like to do is cut them in half at 3.5 inches, and they're a perfect fit for our greeting cards. We're going to begin today by creating this background, and I have a fun technique to share with you for that. So I've got my colors. I've got Mango Melody and Balmy Blue, and those are the Stampin' Classic Ink Pads. I have a piece of window sheet or acetate that's a little larger than my ink pad. And then I have my Fluid 100 paper that's been cut in half at 3.5 by 5. I'm going to take a water painter, and I do have a cup of water that I've placed out of the frame, just so that you know that I'm using that to clean so that I can be nice and quick. And the first thing I'm going to do is take some of that clean water and add it to my paper. This is just going to dampen it so that I get a nice wash with my ink. And you can cover the whole thing or leave some areas untouched. That's totally up to you. And do remember that every time you do this technique, you're going to get different results. So my projects today are not going to look exactly like the project from my original projects. So I have taken my ink pad and stamped it on my acetate, and then I'm going to take some ink or some water, and I'm going to drop it onto that ink and just blend it around so that it gets nice and wet. I can even add more if I need to. And then I'm going to take my paper and my ink, and I'm going to I like to kind of, you can drip first to get any of that excess on, but I like to kind of roll it and then kind of tap it and spread it that way. And I'm kind of focusing, I'm just kind of focusing on the top half is where I want that yellow to be. I can let that dry. And if there's any areas that I want to pick up color, I can just use a tissue or paper towel and just kind of do a little pickup of excess water or ink, things like that. Then I'm just going to clean my acetate. I've got a baby wipe here. And then we're going to repeat that same thing with the Balmy Blue at the bottom. Make sure to clean your water painter, and then you're going to add the water over the ink, just like before. And then if there's any drips, you can add some drips. Not too many this time. And then roll it onto your paper. You can also lay it down if you want to give it more of a straight edge. Okay, so something like that. And if you want to use your water painter to add maybe a little more color or areas, darker areas, you can do that as well. You can also pull in your ink and pick up some ink for those darker areas. Looks like I've got a puddle here that I'm going to just pick up. Okay, so really quite easy to do, and you can let that dry, and then if you do want to add more layers, you can after it's dry. So let's just put that off to the side. Next, I'm going to stamp and watercolor the bird, and I've got my StazOn ink, and I like to use StazOn ink when I'm watercoloring because it won't bleed on me. Ink it up really well, and then stamp it on some more of that Fluid 100 paper. Really focus your pressure along those detailed edges. So this bird has some brown along the top and then a yellow belly. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the soft suede for the brown. And I've got a clean water painter, and I'm just gonna pick up a little bit of color and add a light wash to the wing and the belly. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring that down and give it some color underneath and underneath the wing, but I'm gonna leave the center untouched. Maybe bring a little bit of the color up along the head as well. I'm gonna go ahead and clean my brush and get my Mango Melody. So to get ink in your lid, I don't think I mentioned that, you're going to close your ink pad and press the two together, the front to the back, and that's gonna give a little bit of ink. And for this first bit, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of ink to create just my base color. So now I can go with a little darker ink and add a little bit more details or color to the bird. I'm going to start on the breast and add a darker yellow. And you want to build up color slowly, so don't go too dark too quick. And then I'm going to clean my brush, come back to my soft suede. I might actually dry my brush a little bit so that it's not so wet, because I want just a little bit of ink so that I can kind of come in here with some details. And if you want to use a thinner brush, you can as well. Try to focus on maybe some areas where there would be shadows. I have a little less ink on my brush, and so I'm going to go here at the bottom, just add a little bit darker along the wing to create that shadow feeling, but not a lot. Maybe pick up a little bit more, and then just start to add some little shadows around these little crosshatch lines. Maybe a little bit along the belly. Again, keep it light, and you can work up to something a little darker, but you don't want it to be too dark as you start, because it's hard to lighten up the color. So now that we've got the belly, we've got the wing, I'm going to do a little bit of detail with my soft suede up at the top. And again, just kind of little spots of color. And the beak, you can either leave it yellow or get a little bit of the soft suede and bring that into the beak, just a little bit. You'll want to make sure that's dry so it doesn't bleed outside the edge. So here's the one that I just created. Here's my original. You can see they're very similar, but they're not exactly the same. If there's any areas that you want to change by adding more color, you're welcome to do that. But I feel like that's pretty good, and I'm just going to put that off to the side to let that dry. Next, let's work on the watercoloring for bird number 2 for this card. This one is a little bit different as we're adding a little bit of blue on the underbelly of the bird. And then we also have the branch. And I have already stamped on my watercolor paper. This one is 3 inches by 5 inches. And I've done the bird and the branch. So the bird's about center and the branch is about 1/3. And just like we did before, we're going to start with a clean brush, and we're going to just create some base colors. So we want that to be very light. Start with, this is the balmy blue color that I'm using for the blue. It's the same color blue that I used on the sky on that first card. Clean my brush, get a little bit of the soft suede next, and I'm going to add this to the wing. I get a little bit more ink here at the bottom where I know I want it to be a little darker. And then I also have my Mango Melody here, and just a little bit of color, just like before, for the breast of the bird and along the top. And let those brown and yellow blend a little bit together. Then you'll let those take a minute to soak into the paper. Maybe start with a little drier brush tip, and then you can get darker colors and start to add them as shadows in these areas. So just along the bottom of the bird and underneath the wing. Let's go to the brown next. So the soft suede, I've dried my tip a little bit so that I can get in there and not have it be too wet. And again, focus on some of the shadow areas, a little bit on the top as well. And then we have the Mango Melody. I do want a little darker, just like before on the breast, a little darker yellow right there. And I'm going to do a little bit darker on the top too for this one. Starting to come together really nicely. You can kind of just keep circling around those areas as you want to add more details. I'm going to pull up a little more ink, and I'm going to add some details underneath with just some little dots to give it texture. And make sure you give enough space between those dots so that way they don't blend to just a one color. I'm also going to add some darker details along these little cross hatch marks as well. And then do the same with the brown. If you want to add a little bit of brown inside the blue, you can, just for a little bit of shadow. Just don't overdo it. You know, it might be nice to have a little bit of brown at the top of the head too. I'm going to add a little darker along the beak and the feet. You can see here that it does look different from my original. The original is a little lighter in color. This one I've added a little more color to. You can lighten up areas a little bit by adding a lot of water and then using a clean towel to pick up color. Looks like I did come outside the edge just a little bit there. That's okay. I'm going to go in with just a little bit more brown since I blended that up a little bit. So now I'm going to work on the branch, and I'm going to start with just a light wash, and then we'll add some darker shadows. This is pretty simple. Let that soak in for just a minute, then you can get some darker ink and right along the edge there. And if you don't wait too long, then it will bleed naturally into the lighter area and give it a nice smooth shadow look. So I'm coming back to our first card, and my background is all dry. You want to make sure that it is completely dry before you do this next step, or your ink could bleed and then it won't look very good. So I've got the splatter image. This does come from the same stamp set, Perched in a Tree. You can see right here. And I am using the Sahara Sand ink, and I'm going to go ahead and just add some of this splatter along the edges of my watercolor wash. Maybe come in a little bit more into the blue section. Let's see, maybe another one about there. Okay, so just add that wherever you want to place it, just as a nice, like, distressed look. I'm going to do that same technique here on the other card, and I'm focusing along the edges for this one as well. Make sure it's dry. Kind of try to give it some variation as you go around. So rotate your stamp so that it's not all the same. And you'll get something like this. So it's just around the edge on that one. So on both of my cards, I have used the die cuts, and I've cut out some of these beautiful Aspen leaves. And I've cut them from the Soft Sea Foam green cardstock, and they have that really nice embossed look. But I wanted to add more depth with a watercolor wash on top. So before you put away your water, go ahead and pull out some Pear Pizzazz, which is just a little darker green. And I've added ink to the lid. And then this is just really quick and easy. You just brush on some color, and you don't need to fill the whole thing. And it doesn't need to be exactly the same on every one. You're just adding a touch of color to the center of those leaves. I'll give you a close-up in just a minute. And it can be light or dark. You can go in a little darker if you want on some of those. That one might have gotten a little carried away. Okay. All right, so you can see how they're all a little different, and it just gives a nice touch to those dies so that they have just a little more life to them than just that plain cardstock color. So here I wanted to share with you the dies that come in that bundle. So there's a large aspen leaf and the small one. The small one's what we cut out those leaves with. And then we get this fun aspen tree die, and it's going to cut something that looks like this. And it doesn't actually remove it from the cardstock, but it kind of creates this little vignette type look within that cardstock piece. So we're going to do something fun with that. And I've just cut it from some Very Vanilla. I also have the coordinating die that goes with the bird. I'm going to use some washi tape to hold it in place. So this is the bird that we watercolored. And it just makes fussy cutting these so much easier when you have those coordinating dies. So it's going to look something like this. So we're going to take that aspen tree die, and we're going to remove some of these trees from the vignette. You can see here that I've got them in the background, and you can just start by kind of snipping them just around that edge. Okay, so I'm only going to use this half here. So I'm going to take off these branches, and you want to kind of do this in a way to make it look somewhat natural instead of that you just kind of snipped it. So give it kind of a nice, interesting look as you're trimming those branches down a little bit. So kind of round it out a little bit. And then instead of having everything at an angle, I want to kind of cut it at a straight line. So you can come around here and just start trimming these at like a straight angle instead of following the angle. This one I'm actually going to cut all the way off because I don't think I can get that to look good. So just remove that. And then this one. Okay, so I think that looks good. Then down here at the bottom, you're also going to cut straight. Do like a horizontal cut so that those have a nice finished look. So it's going to look something like this when you're done. And we're just going to add this to the edge of our background with a little bit of liquid glue. So it looked like that. Next, I'm going to add some beautiful vellum layered designs. This one is the one with the handwritten script on it. And I'm just going to lay it across about 1/3 from the bottom. I'm going to use some tear and tape to add it to my card. So using my grid paper, Just going to add some tear and tape right to the top where it's going to sit. And it's about 1 inch by 3.5 inches. So it should go across the whole piece here. And I think that's backwards. So I'm going to do this side. It's a little darker. Okay, so it'll look something like this. Next, I'm going to take 24 inches of linen thread and I'm going to wrap it around the top of that vellum. So to do this, I'm going to find the ends and put them together. And I want the bow on the right side, and I'm going to do a double wrap. So the center of that linen thread is going to go on the right side where I want my bow. And then I'm going to wrap the back piece to the front and the front piece to the back. And then I'm tying a knot. Just tie a bow right there on this side. So with that background all done, I'm going to go ahead and add it to my card base. And I have a card base of thick vanilla, very vanilla cardstock, and that just goes right in the center. Then I'm going to add my bird, and I've added dimensionals to the back of this as well. And it's going to sit right on the top of that linen thread over the trees. And I've added dimensionals to the center of the bird so that I can then tuck in some of the leaves that we did together. I'm going to add one here to the side. I'm going to tuck one underneath the linen thread at the base, and then one over here by the bow. So just like that. Then I have already stamped the greetings and added dimensionals, and I've stamped on some basic white cardstock. I wanted there to be a little bit of a color change between the greeting and the card. And for this one, I am using the No Matter the Season, I Am Here For You, but I have only fussy cut out I Am Here For You. So I'm going to add the I Am Here to the top above the linen thread. And then the For You goes near the bottom, near the leaf. And there we go. I did add some embellishments, but I'm going to add those at the end when my other card is done as well. So for card number 2, I'm also using some of that script from the vellum layering designs, and I want to add it here on the left side. So I'm going to take some tear and tape again and just place that along the edge. Then use my grid paper to line up that vellum, and I'm going to add it so that about 1 inch or 1/2 inch of it is showing, and it is 1 inch in width. So you'll get something that looks like this. So this time I have 30 inches of linen thread, and I'm going to put the ends together, and in the center is where I'm going to add, I want the bow right here by the branch, so that's where I'm going to add the center, and I'm going to wrap it around twice just like I did with the other one. So that one there, and then this one up and around to the back, and then I'm going to tie a knot just like I did before. So once you have that knot, then you can tie a bow right there. Now I can add dimensionals to the back and add it to a card base. This is also thick, very vanilla cardstock. And so now I can add my greeting, and just like before, I've already stamped it and cut it out, and I'm using Your Kindness Warms My Heart. So I've got those on the basic white, and I'm going to actually, let's add that first. And they also have dimensionals on the back. So I'm going to add kindness right along this edge. And then Warms My Heart also goes right up against the edge of that center piece. And then Your goes between the K and the D, right about there. So it's going to look something like that. And then you can take your leaves and add them. I wanted one near the branch at the one side, and then we'll add the other to the other side of the branch. And if you want to pop them up with dimensionals, you can do that. This one down here, just to hide, so that the branch doesn't look barren without any leaves on it. So then, like I said, the last thing I want to add are some of these brushed metallic adhesive back dots. And I really love these brass looking ones here. And so I'm going to add these to my cards. So I'm going to take a large one and a small one up above by the bird, and maybe another large one down by the greeting on the leaf for that one. And then for card number 2, I'm going to add a large one, if I can get it, over here on the vellum. Maybe this one I'll put on that side, and then a small one on the vellum, and another small one near the greeting. And our cards are all done. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me create these fun cards that I made for the Artisan Design Team for December 2022. If you're interested in purchasing any products, please use the link to my online store below. If you'd like to see written instructions or close-up images on how I created these cards, you can visit my blog, creativechelsea.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.